Hello, everyone. Welcome to this quick introduction to CICON. This software is for industrial automation using CIMON PLCs. Um, so in this video, we're just going to cover the basics from creating a project to editing online. So let's go ahead and get started on that. When you first open up CICON, it will bring you to this gray background screen. There's not much you can do on here. What you want to do first is go to your File tab and click New Project. In this option, it's going to ask you what kind of module you're trying to set up, from CM1s to CM3s. Just for simplicity, we're just going to open up this PLCS, which is our CM3 series. Um, Once you come in here, you'll see that this is where it's going to save. You can change the project path. You can set it as the default path. Or if you accidentally selected the incorrect CPU, you can go ahead and hit CPU type and you can reselect your options. For this, we're just going to go ahead and name this project, a quick overview. It shows my name. You can put whatever you want into there. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to go with quick overview. You have FB extensions, HPO7 legacy, and SHPO7. So if you are by chance using a hybrid HMI, you're going to want to make sure on the back where the serial number is located that you choose the correct option, or else the project won't work. That's only for hybrid users. So if you're not a hybrid user, don't worry about this option. Does not matter. We have security settings. So in here, if you don't want somebody to access your project, you can go ahead and set a password to whatever you want to set it to. And then you'll just hit OK on that. Our connections, you can use Ethernet, USB, serial, and all these other options. We're going to go ahead and just stick with the standard USB because we're using a micro mini USB. So I'll hit OK on that. Once you do that, it'll take a second, but then it will load up the entirety of the project. So starting from the file, we have all these options. You can go through them if you would like. Within the project properties, you can go back and rechange, certain settings if you want. Other features that we have in here is you can make it an ST if you're using the plus CPU. And here you have your edit options. You're not going to be able to use these until you actually create your scan program, which we'll go over in a minute. So you have these, search, view. So views are going to bring up your panels. So if we turn off variable editor at the bottom right, you'll see that it disappears. But if we go ahead and check that again, you'll see it pops up. So in view, it's primarily just your main panels that you see around here, like the device monitor, message window, and project window. We'll go to online. So there's a couple important things within the online section. First of all, you have your connect option, which is going to allow you to connect to your PLC. Once you're connected, you'll have the option to disconnect from it whenever you're finished with it. Within connect option, it's going to be that same menu we saw earlier, which allows you to choose what type of communication setup you want to use. So Ethernet, USB, all these. We're going to stick with the USB-A. You have PLC scan, link, download, monitor. So whenever you do create your project on CICON, you're going to want to make sure you download it to the PLC. And how do you do that? You're going to want to click the link and download plus monitor. There's also a little button right here that you can use if you don't want to go to the online option. Same with the connect and disconnect. Going down the list a little bit, another important feature we have right here is upload. So say you have a project on your PLC that you want to bring onto your PC. You'll connect your PLC to your computer, and then you'll have this option once it's connected. Just make sure you don't press link, download, and monitor, or else you're going to overwrite whatever project's on that PLC. You have your memory monitor. That allows you to see where bits are being stored. We'll look at that in a little bit. Firmware upgrade. If you're using, the incorrect, like if you want to use web server, you'll want to change your firmware. PLC password, if you set a password, you can change it here. Another important one is the PLC status information. Once you're actually connected, you can see your PLC's information. So we'll do that real quick just so you can take a look. As you can see, it tells you your PLC's MAC address, PLC type, if there's expansions attached to it, just all the good stuff. If you go into tools, uh, you have cross-reference, which is going to show you everything that you have, like X's or Y's, your inputs, outputs. If you're using any M's, D's, K's, L's, any of these registries, it'll show you within here. Pretty useful tool. Uh, you can also export your project to a Excel document. Options, if you go down into here, there's a lot of good things in here. You have your general tab, your LD editor, your SFC editor, your FB options, ST program, hotkeys, and themes. So obviously themes, if you want to change the way that your CICON looks, you have the availability here. Um, Under our help tab, we have the about. The about section tells you what version of CICON you're currently using. A lot of the times, if you have a question or you get in contact with us, we'll probably ask what your version number is. So knowing where it's located is a good thing. We also have a help file and an online help file. So going into the project window, this panel on the far left, we have the program tab, the parameter tab, and the reserved IO. So we're just going to go down this list and look at it together. So under program, if you go, okay. So you can do it through file as well. If you go to new program, you'll see all the LD programs that we have to offer. We have scans, subroutines, and so on. Same with the communication configuration. We have serial protocol, MP3. Um, just keep in mind some of these programs or configurations, they don't work with CM3s and they only work with CM1s. So certain types of these configurations won't be available depending on what PLC you're currently using. Like if I'm using a CM3, I go into the list, I can be able to use it because it's not compatible for this CPU. So we'll go down to parameter. In PLC parameter, we have the basics. If I want the timer to be 100 milliseconds, I can set a T register to be 0 to 127, or if I want it 10 milliseconds, I can do it between 128 and 511. We have watchdog timers, upload, communication, hot restart, expansion, CPU, WDT, all the good things. We got latch. So in latch, if you want a register to be non-volatile, you'll go ahead and enable these. You can enable them by just selecting it and then setting the range of whatever you want it to be. We have our interrupt tab, CPU errors, our serial connections. We have RS-232, and then we have RS-422, channel 1, channel 2 inputs. Just our overall standard inputs. So if you have a button on X, you can just enable that within the project and you can check it right here and it'll just automatically energize. Modbus settings, if you want to create multiple slave IDs, you can keep track of that here. And then our Ethernet connection. So, you can set your IP to whatever IP you're trying to target. Just make sure you have your subnet mask and your gateway set correctly as well. You can use DHCP or you can use your loader relay use through serial. I'm sorry, reserved IO. This is what you're pretty much going to use if you're trying to set up like a simulator. It will allow you to set up to, I believe, 12 bases on the CM3. You can also leave it on just detect automatically. So in here, you can just add whatever module or expansion you're wanting to put onto your CM3 itself without actually having it, which is nice because you can test and see, exactly how you want to configure it before you make a purchase or anything like that. And it just gives you a better idea of, what you need. Um, so I'm not going to save that. Once you do have your reserved IOs set up correctly and you connect to your CICON, you're going to want to make sure you're running a simulator mode. That's the only way you'll see that, but it will adjust your bases accordingly. Moving on, we have the message window down here. So down here, it will tell you everything that happens. If you create a new scan and say you add just for random sake so we can see it connecting, if you just put like an M register and you increase it, if you download this, you'll be able to see giving you the messages. If an error pops up, it'll tell you. So just wait for this to download. Okay, so now that you can see we're online, another way to see if you're actually connected properly is you'll see typically a value over whatever register you set. So in this case, it's seeing that the value is D0. If we go ahead and energize this just for example's sake, you'll see that the value is increasing. So that's how you know you're online. If you want to go offline, just go ahead and hit that disconnect button again, and it'll disconnect you. It'll also update you of anything down here. So on my CM3, I have a run and stop switch. I'll go ahead and put it in stop, and it should update. So it says remote stop. If I put it back into run, it'll say remote run. Moving on, if you look over on the far right side, you'll see a tab called Variable Editor. This is a pretty nice feature that we offer within CICON. If you go to F, you can see your flag. These are your internal flags. So these aren't anything that you can change. You can add a variable to it if you want to call it by something else. But these are just by default what they are set to within CICON. Speaking of variables, we can do an example real quick. So as mentioned before, we have a description and we have a variable. So if for some reason I want to, add a comment or I want somebody to know exactly what that is without it be called Y00, I can just call it something like this is a test, and I can set the variable to test. If we go back into our project, we can simply call that by calling it test rather output. So if we do F5 is the shortcut. So if we do like X00 and I want to increase Y00, I can just type test and it'll go ahead and add Y00 into it and it says this is a test. So that's how the description and variable works. You can do the same thing with all these other registers as well. Um, so yeah, that's that. So moving forward, let's go ahead and take a look at the memory monitor so we can see exactly how that works. So we'll go ahead and connect back to our device. And we'll go into our memory monitor, which we have an option for right here. Or I believe it's under online. If you go, you can do it either through online or you can select the memory monitor icon right here. So currently we do have an increase using the first line that we have up here. So we're targeting D0. So we're going to go into D. Oh, we got to re-download and connect back to it. I forgot about that. So now that we're connected, if you look over here in our memory monitor, once this M00 is energized, it will go ahead and put a value into our first bit of the D00. So you can see the value increasing in there. It's a great way to keep track of everything that's going on and be able to see it in a more simplistic way rather than, scrolling through the scan program and finding it. Okay. So now let's go over the actual contacts, which you can see at the toolbar at the top, or once you get comfortable, you can just press the hotkeys. For example, horizontal line is F2, invert is F4, normally open contacts F5. So let's go through them real quick. So escape, that will, if you're selected in a box, if you press escape, it'll, allow you to use your mouse again. Convenient. Erase. So if you don't want something, you can press the erase. It'll delete whatever cell you're currently selected on. Vertical line. If you want to connect something, say for some reason we have an open uh, function right here. If we just Yep. So there you go. Now you can see that it's connected. Without that line, you'll see it gives a red line. So if you try to download or run anything like that, anything that gives off like this red um, line right here will just instantly be deleted. So you want to make sure everything that you want connected is connected. We also have the delete vertical line. So if you go back up to that cell and delete it, it'll go ahead and remove it. With the vertical line, we also have a horizontal line. So if I, at the top called horizontal line, or you can press F2 and it'll go ahead and go down the line next to whatever you're trying to get it to connect to. In our invert option, F5 is going to be our open contact. This is probably going to be primarily the one you use the most. We also have normally closed contact. So until this value is what your target value is, it's going to stay closed. So say your goal is 100. This won't be able to energize until the value is 100. So it'll stay closed. We also have our positive transition sensing contact, which is also we refer to as a one shot. So this will only go up one time and then it'll stop. Same with this. It will only activate one time on hold. We have our coil, which ends a statement. So the coil is like your closing bracket. Application instruction. So if you want to type in whatever instruction you want, like if you want to move 1 to D10, you can do that. That's just another way to open that application instruction. Another way you can do it is just go to one of the last cells and you can press enter, and then it will allow you to type as well. So F12 is going to be our comment. So if you want to put a comment on one of these rows, you can do that. Hello, this is a test. So that'll, create comments, which makes it easier for organization if you want to follow it. If you don't like the color, you can also go back in, change it to a different color. And then the last one we have is function blocks. So it'll be these are our function blocks. These are the predefined one. You can create your own as well, but it makes it a lot easier if you just go through ones we already have pre-created. Other than that, though, this was just a simple overview. This was just a way to get you introduced into our CICON program.